Hello and welcome to Hope for the Family, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholism. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggie's. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. In our Hope for the Family series, recovered family members from our community share how they've been able to find peace and freedom as the loved ones of alcoholics. With your host, me, Laurie Evans, loved one of an alcoholic and co-founder of Family Support at the Magdalen House. For more information about our family support group, including weekly meetings, please visit magdalenhouse.org/family. We're so glad you're here, and thank you for listening. Hello, and welcome to Hope for the Family, the podcast that we do interviewing recovered family members. Today, I have Deb Tomlinson, who I've known for about 8 years. We met at an Al-Anon group. Yeah. We were both pretty angry back then and scared, and we both found our solution at that Al-Anon group. And then we came over here to start the family support group here, and we've been doing it, going strong ever since. So I want to introduce you to Deb. Welcome, Deb.
Thanks, Laurie. I'm glad to be here. Yeah, it seems like a long time ago, but then it seems like yesterday.
That's true. Yeah. That is true. So, Deb, I want to ask you, and I might know the answers to some of these, but and so don't look at me weird.
I won't.
But I'm going to ask you, just for the audience's sake, how did you find the Magdalen House and first get connected?
So I immediately, when I started Al-Anon, after getting back from visiting my son in his inpatient program in West Texas, it was highly recommended that I run to an Al-Anon group when I got back to Dallas.
Run like as fast as you can.
Yeah, as fast as I could get there, because I learned that a lot of my helpful suggestions, my micromanaging and unsolicited comments and advice was really kind of hurting my son. His counselor kind of said to me, I really think it'd be really helpful for him, but most importantly for you, to figure this out a little bit from your perspective, because I had always known it's a family disease. So I remember sitting in an Al-Anon meeting, and they were talking about doing the 12 steps. That was kind of foreign because I always thought that was from the perspective of the alcoholic, and not from, and I refer to myself as an Al-Anonic, and I always do those, air quotations, marks kind of things. But Lauren, who's my sponsor, was spearheading, facilitating one of those meetings. And right after, like when I first met her, I said, hey, would you be my sponsor? Because I've been told I really need to figure this out from my perspective. And she said, all right, well, we kind of need to date a little bit before we run into a big relationship. So let's just think about it. And when I did the carrying the message to others, which is step 12, she suggested, so it was really her suggestion to come and carry the message, because I had been doing it at the VA and the greenhouse. Is that what it's called in Arlington?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And so I came to Maggie's, and I really liked the whole idea, even though I wouldn't been working one-on-one with the women that went to the First Step program, but I'd be working with their families. And so that's how I got involved. And the first day was a Sunday, and I came to, back at the old location.
And that was when we did it on Sundays.
And we did it on Sundays, yeah. And I never looked back. I've been doing it ever since then, which is crazy.
Yeah.
So
that's great.
That was a long-winded answer, but that's it.
No, that's a great answer. And we have several people from our Al-Anon group that came over here and used this for their 12-step work.
Yeah.
And I also find community here, so because it is based on community. So I think that's the whole point. But yeah, I love our group.
I mean, you all are my people. I talk to others when I facilitate meetings here on Wednesdays, and we used to do Thursdays at noon via Zoom. I would talk to them about how important it is to help those, and I have that depth and weight. It's not just helping moms with sons, but spouses and daughters and all, because I love the whole premise of First Step, Next Step for Magdalen House, and how it empowers women and all of that. But more importantly, what was given to me 7-8 years ago at where my son went for inpatient program and I went to a family weekend, I wanted to be able to give that back. So twofold. And it keeps me focused as to it gave me, I was drowning and it gave me a lifeline, a safety ring, so to speak. So
yeah, that moves us into our next question. Like, can you talk about your 12-step journey? Because I know that you and I both have been through the 12 steps of Al-Anon, and that's where we found our solution. And at our Al-Anon group with our sponsors, like you said, your sponsor Lauren, who's also in our group. Can you talk about your journey with the 12 steps?
So it was quick doing. I knew step 1, 2, and 3, my life was unmanageable. I knew it was something beyond human aid, that my self-will was not helping me anymore. I don't care how strong and determined I am. I'm not God. And so thy will be done. I needed to focus on all of that. And that took a while because I am somewhat of a control freak.
Or you were.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, were. I'm passionate about it. So the 12-step, I thought, brilliant. I can do 1, 2, and 3. We did it very quickly. But then 4 hit me. And I remember at that time wanting to recreate what was given to me. And I remember she prefaced it, this is the format. I really need you to sit down and do X, Y, Z. And then I'd say, well, I found something a different way, and I like the form better than the form you gave me. And she, we were talking on the phone. I could hear her smile, like grinning. She's like, Deb, the whole idea is what was given to me, I'm giving to you, and that's the whole process. You are not there to rewrite all of this. And so
control it.
Or think that I am that powerful that I can create a process that's been working since the 30s, when this, the big book was written, and thinking that I can do it. So it was really difficult for me to sit down and do putting all of this together, my life, pretty much. Very cathartic, very necessary, and then sharing that with another person.
Mm-hmm.
And someone that I knew, but it wasn't like I've grown up with her.
Right.
And having faith and feeling raw and that whole confidentiality. And I knew that she had me and she wouldn't make fun of me or judge me. We have similarities when it came to some of our upbringing, that she had me. And that was my first inclination of feeling safe. That depth and weight concept of feeling safe, that she'd take good care of me, and that my higher power I call is God, that God would take care of me doing that too. And so it was, and then coming home at doing step 6 and just being quiet for an hour.
Yeah.
I mean, how was I going to do that? I'm always talking. So it's like I want to tell everybody what I just experienced, and I made myself be quiet and just be at peace. And there was a lot of hope that came out of that, believe it or not.
Yeah.
So.
Well, that's awesome. And then you went through the other steps. You're obviously living in 10, 11, and 12 now. I see that. I witnessed that.
Yes. I feel so blessed to be able to carry the message to others. I've also learned that in the beginning of all of this, I would plant the seed and expect immediately growth from that person I was carrying the message to, and realized again, I have no control over that. I'm just there as sort of a vessel. If they have a willingness to learn, everything I share with them was given to me, and I'm just passing it through me to them. Sometimes they're just not ready, and that's okay. It's so interesting how control can really manifest itself in every pocket of your life, and how it can create obstacles that don't allow you to have that freedom or that, what do I want to say, a peacefulness about it. Mm-hmm. I'm always like, I feel like the downhill skier, I remember when I was learning how to ski, they'd say you have to have your poles like this, like you're holding a tray of food. And a lot of times I'm not on a ski run but I feel that tension, and I'm doing it to myself. No one's doing that to me. And it's not because I want to look like I have good form. It's just like, I don't know. It just came to me. It's interesting.
Yeah, it's a tightness. It's like you can't let go.
And
that's the thing about, going through the steps is that when an alcoholic goes through the steps, and I've seen this in my own life, God removes their obsession with alcohol.
Yes.
And I believe in my life that God removed my obsession with the alcoholic.
Yes.
And for you, it could be just a tiny bit different. He might have removed your obsession to control.
Yes.
So,
a lot of things. I mean, it just isn't just one. I mean, obviously it's a family disease and it's affected all of us, but I really try and say it's affected us, yes, in a difficult way, but also in a very positive way, because I can see, and I know my kids can see, that I'm not so pained. Like, it looks painful, like painful expressions on my face, or worry about things that ultimately I had no control over. I love when I speak to newcomers about the family support group here at Maggie's, and asking them to focus on themselves, but also saying things like, you sharing your story with me, I know I help you because it had helped me.
Because you've been where they're at.
I've been where they're at, and I totally embrace that. But also it helps me in that moment, because I could be stressing or really hyper-focused about something, and I can't let go of it. And it's amazing, after like the first 2 minutes, those obstacles and that tension, everything kind of floats away, and I do it not just for them, but I do it for me to continue to carry the message.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, for me it was like once I went through the steps, I have this burning desire, to help people, and I don't mean like help them carry out their groceries.
No.
I mean like help them the way I was helped, just like you said. And I never stopped thinking about it.
No, I say thank you. I mean, the gratitude comes up for me. I'm grateful to be in this position. Sometimes I'm like, I'm too tired and I just don't want to go, or I don't want to listen, and I'm just fussy. Sugar helps, I can take a little piece of candy or something, but I always walk out of there here.
Really glad you...
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is a blessing. I mean, how many people can say that you feel rejuvenated in a way, and you were actually acting a sense of service to someone, but you get so much back tenfold. And that is a wonderful feeling. And I'm so happy that I recognize it. And so I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. And I'm assuming I know the answer to this, but I hope you can tell everybody how it's helped you outside of your relationship with your...
My son?
Your son. Mm-hmm. In your other relationships.
Well, we just got back from a really great trip. We went to a wedding in Cornwall, and my husband, I love to travel, and he's not as much of he's an anxiety-ridden traveler, unfortunately for him. And I was able to look at where he was at moments during our time together. And it was just the two of us. I mean, meeting people and stuff. We didn't have kids with us or other family members. So it's just a lot of alone time. And I would just step back, and I paused a lot. I wasn't necessarily giving him advice or telling him, well, you should. Should's always get you in trouble anyway. But I just looked at him and gave him a lot of, I'd say, bandwidth to figure it out. And we did not argue, whereas in the past, I would give him helpful suggestions and bumper stickers of slogans that might really give him a better idea of how to tackle it next time better than he is tackling it right now. And that just, he takes it on as doom and gloom. Like he's not doing a good job, or he's not worthy of whatever is going on, because he was able to share that with me. We wouldn't have had that grace and that peaceful, enjoy each other moments like we did, him driving on the other side of the road, we both hadn't been to places that we were visiting, and I just kept cheering him on like I would with an alcoholic in the past. I'd say, "You've got this,"
You got this.
"I have faith in you." I used all those little slogans with Ken, and I wasn't chastising him, and he took it as, "Oh, thanks, I really needed that." Like,
Built
I
him
made
up.
him feel empowered, and
instead of complaining that
and
he was dragging you down.
bitching at him. Yeah. And like, "Oh my gosh, you're not doing it right." Like, how do I know?
Yeah, what are you, the
What do I
expert?
know? Again, all these tools that I have in my infamous toolbox help me in all different facets of my life. And I would say it definitely was part of the positive experience that we had together on our trip, because there were a lot of unknowns. And what's behind the corner, what's behind, door number 2, we didn't necessarily know. And I have a lot more adventure and excitement of spontaneity. He does not. But I didn't shame him because he's not like me.
That's
sort of
awesome.
It
And
makes
he's
sense.
not the alcoholic.
No, he's not that. Yeah, but I can see how I can be so overbearing. So I'm really happy about that.
How has God shown you that? Like, how did he show you that? In your amends, or?
I would say with amends, I would say it's, I have a closer, we've talked about this before. We grew up in a religious family, you and I both, and I'm still religious, but I do not have this program has created through amends and the practicality of doing what I need to do to stay healthy. My routine has created a close, used to say the God tube, which I always used to love. I have a much better relationship with my higher power than I ever had before, because I have faith and hope.
And you trust in
And I trust in that it may not be the outcome that I think I need, but it many times is an outcome that is better for me or for my people around me in the long run, if that makes sense.
It does. Because, like, I remember, for so long, while Tina was drinking, I was like, I got to get her sober.
Yeah.
I got to get her sober. And I've got these plans, and I'm going to get her sober, right? And it was one day that her sponsor pulled me aside and said, "You know what, why don't you just back up just a tiny bit, and you might get to see a miracle." Which she was right, and I did. The thing is, had she gotten sober on any of my plans,
yeah,
she wouldn't have the life she had today.
Yes.
You know what I mean? She is doing amazing.
She is doing amazing things.
And helping so many people. And I have a front row seat, and it's amazing to see. And so backing up was one of the very best things I ever did.
Yeah.
For her and me, because I wasn't on top of her, shielding her from God getting to her, and or attempting to. I don't know if she would have let me, but it's like we always think that we can get them sober, and we can nag them enough or shame them enough, and they're like you said, they're beyond human aid. And so the fact that I was just told in passing, why don't you back up just a little bit, and I did a little bit until this was before I went through the steps, and then after I'd backed up just a tiny bit, then I was able to to find somebody to help me and go through the steps, and my life has never been the same. But I'm really glad I did that.
I totally relate to what you're saying. I remember meeting a young lady when we were doing a lot of our Zooms. We didn't meet in person. It was during COVID and all that. And she was in recovery, but she introduced us to the word agency and that whole concept. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not allowing my people, my brother-in-law, my son, a friend of mine, the opportunity to figure out with their community, the Magdalen House first step, if they do the next step, my son's sober living environment, whatever it might have been, of what they need to do to take care of themselves, to have recovery, no recovery. It's their journey. And when I step in and try and manage, It's like in the book they talk about you're trying to be a stage manager to like every facet of a production.
When you're supposed to be the actor.
And who am I again? It's like self-will versus thy will. And when I step back and allow that to happen, you do discover and be able to participate or witness a miracle. It's not on my time, it's on God's time, and whatever that journey is. And a lot of times it's really hard to explain that to someone until they actually get to experience little tiny moments where then they understand what I don't want to say preach, but what we share with them from our own experience.
What we live every day, yeah.
Are you a loved one of an alcoholic? Our family support group serves as a community for friends, loved ones, and family members of alcoholics to learn about alcoholism, understand how to help an alcoholic, and experience an improved quality of life, regardless of the alcoholic's recovery. We have weekly support meetings that meet virtually and in person, and all friends and family are welcome, even if your loved one has not been through our programs. To find out more about our family support group, visit magdalenhouse.org/family.
You've heard me a lot of times. I always say to people, and I practice it myself, and I was just on an airplane. So it's like when that, the air pressure, you have turbulence in the airplane, and they tell you ahead of time, proactively, this is what's going to happen. Well, when the mask drops out of that panel above you, they always say, don't try and put it on your loved one first, because you're no good if you are dead trying to, because you can't breathe.
Yeah.
So my goddaughter was reminding me that the other day. She's like, you always told me when I was little, make sure and so she says, when she checks her motive, when she's talking to her mom, she'll say, is my mask on? Which I think is brilliant. And I said, really? She goes, Aunt Deb, I always say that, is my mask on before I go do something.
That's awesome.
Isn't that cool?
That's a really cool, it's really cool.
Yeah, is my mask on? Nope, it's not.
That's
okay.
a good way to check, and you can check your motive that way.
That you can.
That is awesome. So when you, in your own recovery process, did you have any misconceptions about the steps, or did you think that's not for me?
Oh, 100%. I mean, I thought, again, it's all they're doing. They need to figure it out. I've kind of witnessed some of this. I had a high school boyfriend, and he went through Hazelton. I'm from Minnesota, and he went through Hazelton, and we called ourselves concerned people back then. And so I did a program. He did relapse during that time period, and I stayed with those concerned people. I was a senior in high school, and they were really good to me, but I never heard anything about the 12 steps. It was just
like a
group to that we could have that depth and weight, like what we've been talking about, but never the 12 steps. And so it really had sort of realigned itself in my mind that it's not about me. I mean, that group of people back then, we used to kind of complain about our loved ones. Not until I went to Al-Anon, and then family support, carrying the message, the whole concept of it, how important it was for me, individually me, to work the steps, because then that was taking care of myself. And if I'm a better version of myself, I'll be much more helpful, not necessarily giving that advice, but pausing and praying and staying out of things that really aren't my business. Like, have you contacted your sponsor? I noticed your book hasn't moved. It's still on the end table. Or I just saw a really great event that's coming up in Dallas, Fort Worth for alcoholics. You should go, or addicts. You should go. So yeah, I thought I knew what I needed to know, but I didn't have the willingness to get better until it was presented to me. The harming, and you've heard me say that before, I don't care what gets you in the door to start working the steps. Who cares? Work them, because they're so vital to your own self and your relationships with everybody else. I mean, work-related relationships, your immediate family, your mom, your dad, if they're still alive, all of that. It's important. Your friendships.
Yeah.
It teaches you, is this helpful information, or am I gossiping? is this really my story to share, or is it my person's?
Isn't that great?
Yeah.
That's one of the things that we figured out, that like by talking
Yeah.
to people about our alcoholics, that's gossip.
Yes.
And that's why you just talk to your sponsor.
Right.
Right.
And I didn't understand that.
I didn't understand it either.
Mm-mm.
And I'd call anybody that would listen.
Oh, I did. I was martyr. I mean, feel sorry for me. Look at this heavy load I have on my back and my hands. And then I wondered why people would dart away from me when they see me at
Here she
Tom
goes. Yeah, here she goes. Let's go the other way.
Yeah, I don't want to hear all her baloney.
Oh, you're not. How are you doing, Deb?
Yeah.
Oh,
well, let me tell you.
Yeah. No, and it's funny because like I know we both came from the same Al-Anon group, and it's the same AA group that Tina went to, and so when she first got sober, I was really sick back then, and I would go to the meetings with her to make sure she was doing it. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
I had to make sure she was doing it right. And every time I'd walk by the Al-Anon room, because you had to walk by the Al-Anon room to get into the big room.
Yeah.
And I'd hear laughter.
Oh, yes.
And it pissed me off.
I know.
And I'd be like, I don't know what they have to laugh about.
Yeah.
Because I've got a really big job here,
Yeah.
right? I've got to keep her sober. You know, and obviously now today I know that it didn't have one thing to do with me not getting her to Maggie's, not getting her sober. I didn't have anything to do with it. Now looking back, I know that. And so finally one day after about 3 or 4 times, I went into that room because I wanted to find out what was so funny and how they had time to do that.
Yes.
And you know what I found in that room is some people had recovered alcoholics in their lives. Some people had their alcoholic was still out there, but they were still happy and joyous and taking care of themselves. And God had done that for them.
Yes.
And that's there were 2 things that made me decide to go through the steps. One, because I wanted what Tina had.
Yes.
I wanted to have a close relationship with my higher power like she did. And I was like, I thought that was just really kind of cool because I'd always grown up religious, but I never figured out there was a difference in going to church and then trusting and relying on God every day.
Yes.
But I learned that by going through the steps. And so that's how I eventually got into the Al-Anon room and ended up, meeting you there so long ago.
I know. I can remember thinking they must not have the same trials and level of nuts, crazy chaos that I do. They just don't have it that bad. And then came to realize that we all have similar stories. Nobody's outshines the other, but of how they choose to manage it and how they choose to react to it. Do they choose light and peaceful happiness and hope, or just to be burdened and get down in the trenches and not wanting to come out? Yeah. Because change would occur, and change is hard. I mean, like the 12 steps are not easy. They're very doable. But like I said earlier about sitting down and having to really think about all these different aspects in my life, I think we all say that if you put the work in, you will have reward. But you have to have that willingness and dedication that you want to make some changes. And I wanted to be one of those people that are laughing in the AA room or the Al-Anon room, or going, oh, my, loved one just got picked up for DUI, or, they relapsed again, and how they managed about it didn't consume them. Right. It consumed me and isolated me, and I just wanted to stay in my house. And if I saw people at that Tom Thumb with my cart, I went the other direction. Yeah. And I could have looked great that day. I had nothing to do with that. I just didn't want to have to say, how are you? Well, yeah. Or they saw it all on social media, and I didn't want to have to respond to that either.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
So family support and the Magdalen House have been in your life for like 8 years now or more. What have you learned about alcoholism? Has it helped you to understand the disease as a family member? Yes,
because like I said earlier, I thought I knew a lot. I knew it was a disease. I didn't really have an understanding. I did still, what do I want to say? I still thought there was a little bit of self-control relationship with alcoholism and addiction. I didn't understand the manifestation of an allergy, how a person's mind, spirit, and body, an alcoholic has a very different composition than I do. I have similarity between mind and spirit, and then physically my body, because of the stress and worrying and all of that and trying to manage, I get sick, digestive issues and stuff. But I know I'm not an alcoholic because I can stop drinking. I don't have that allergy. But I loved hearing stories from recovered alcoholics and what got them to a place of wanting recovery, of change. And it wasn't just to be not drinking or using anymore, but needing a program that sustained them.
Right.
Because a lot of times I've heard them say things like, well, I was not drinking, but I was one of the most unhappy people. I almost wanted to drink again because I was a nicer person then. You need all of those. It's a village. You need your community. Obviously, you need your sponsor. And I'm not saying in this direct order, you need a relationship with a higher power, all those things. And it's the same with me on my side, that I realized that it was kind of life and death for me too, in a different way.
Yeah.
Because the mental obsession just took such hold of me that I don't remember periods in my life. My kids will tell a story and I don't really remember because I was so depressed and hyper-focused and so...
well, you were obsessed.
I was obsessed with that, not obsessed with alcohol, but obsessed with them. And so I'm always marveled when I hear, like last night I listened to one of our recovered alcoholics and loved how she managed and put it all in from her perspective. It was brilliant. So I'm always marveled when I get to listen to other personalities talk.
Yeah. Do you go listen to the podcast for Maggie's House?
Yes.
I love that.
Last night though we had a family support meeting, and so I got to hear one of our recovered, because what we do during family support, as you know, is we have a recovered alcoholic talk from their perspective of what the disease
to kind of give
like.
hope.
Give hope, and so you have family members in there listening, and they look, okay, she doesn't have two horns coming out of her head, and she's, a very successful.
And she was just as bad as my alcoholic.
Exactly. Yeah. And did really horrific things because she couldn't, she had no control of them. And she would keep doing those horrific and have these consequences until she didn't want to do that anymore. Like, I give up. I can't manage this anymore. Help me. So.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. It's just amazing to listen to. As you can see, I get very excited about it. So.
Yeah, I love it. So, what would you say is the biggest gift you've received as a family member working the steps then?
I would say peace, tranquility, and giving a sense of hope, because, Lori, I didn't have hope. I was a hopeless and just thought, I don't want to be here anymore. Like, it's so depressing. And I know I sound dramatic in saying that, but I just didn't see any light in any of this because of the fact that I was trying to make change, but not making change within my own self. I was trying to make change in everybody around them. They were my obstacle. Like, if they would only do what I tell them to do, if they would only, I have all these expectations, and their journey panned out for them. Again, not giving them that sense of a sense of agency, allowing them the respect to figure it out for themselves, not following what we're really here for is to manage how we answer to our higher power or to our community. I have choice in that, but I don't have control or choice over how somebody else manages their life at all. I mean, you can give suggestions, but I was the queen of unsolicited advice.
Oh, yeah.
I would stand on my little soapbox and give everybody, I think you should do this and I do that. And I know I'm better.
Whether they ask or not.
And they never asked.
Yeah.
So it's great because when I have a conversation with my son, he'll be on the phone, he'll say, I heard you, or thank you, or I'll ask him, would you like some advice or do you just want to vent? I really just want to vent. I'm like, fine, I just listen. So unconditionally,
yeah,
which is very different than the condition.
That's one of the things that changed in me too.
Yeah,
was that I used whenever anybody would come to me and say, "Gosh,
I had the worst day. I got this and that happened. And then I'm like, all right, here's the things you're going to need to do. And then I would just take on their problems as my problems.
I'm so glad you said that, because I think that is sort of a precursor for all of us Al-Anonics. We would take on all of the drama and, okay, they're in this spot. So what should I do to fix it for them? I'm like, nothing, just step back. Well, I can't do that. I mean, they're going to get in trouble, or they could,
What if they die?
What if they die? And I'm like, well, what if they die?
Can you control that?
Can you? I mean, that's out of our control. That pain, I mean, it was painful, has been, I'm not saying I don't go back and visit it, but it has been eliminated. 7 years ago, it was, body language, shoulder. I look at pictures of myself. I'm holding that tray skiing, with, I do not personify a happy-go-lucky personality, because I wasn't.
Right.
I wasn't at all. Because I took on, not that anyone asked me to, but I took on all of their pain and drama, and I need to fix this. You know what it is? It's like an adrenaline junkie in a way. Like the adrenaline would manifest itself in me, and I kind of enjoyed it.
Yeah, it felt good.
It felt good.
It's the way alcohol might feel for an alcoholic. Yeah. It felt good for us to be like, oh, okay, I got this other thing I can solve. I'll just solve. Right. I'll work on this.
I'll find them a job, or I'll fix that car, or always putting down somewhat of a invisible pillow so they don't fall and hit their head hard. Well, to learn that, the whole concept of all of that does take a bit of time.
Yeah.
It does. I mean, it depends upon how long it takes, but it did take me some time, not trying to, because my motive was, I don't want it to look bad on me. I look like a bad mom if they see the train wreck. If they see that, the squinty eyes, or he's walking around with the solo cup, when I finally got okay to, the solo cup could have water in it, doesn't necessarily mean, like, how am I choosing to react to something that I really don't know? I don't know. I'm just putting all these bad images in my mind and running to the hills with them.
That is true. It's not easy, but going through the steps really saved me.
Yeah. I mean, it did. I highly recommend, I don't know what else to say other than this book. First 164 pages are key. To the wives, you just substitute wife and put to the Debbies of the world, or to the Lories, and there is a solution. It just gave me hope.
Yeah, it's funny. I just had a meeting with a group of people that are staff here at Maggie's, and I think most of them have been through the steps, and somehow we got on the topic of our favorite part of the book. Mm-hmm. Now mine changes every other week, but this week it is the part where it talks about how what started out as a flimsy reed ended up being the hand of God.
Oh, yes. Oh, I like that.
I mean, it's so cool. And that's really the way I felt. It was a flimsy reed for me. I walked in there and I was like, you people are all crazy.
Yeah.
And I don't need you. I'm not the one with the problem.
Right.
And it turns out I was.
Yes.
It turns out I really was. And I had to go through the steps, to get rid of that control and the judgment and the gossip and judgment is a lot of it, because I would judge everybody and everything. And now I look at it like they're a child of God. I'm a child of God. They have the right. They're a human. And it's interesting. Last night, and as well as I did the Zoom meeting last night while you were doing the in-person.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And 99% of the people that come, are early in they're either at the end of their rope with their alcoholic, not seeking recovery, or they're early in their person seeking recovery, and they're both raw. Okay. Yes. Both either one is raw. So this lady came last night, and she said she got her number. She was searching and she got on the website, and she said that she was really upset, and she said that she had just told her daughter that if she was going to drink, she couldn't live there. And she thinks she did the wrong thing because her daughter left and she don't know where she is and she don't have any money.
That's hard, I know.
It is. But I was like, whether you realize it or not, that was the most loving thing you can do.
Right.
Because it's not, it is kind of counterintuitive to what you have in your heart for your daughter or your loved one or your son or any of them, that it's like, it's counterintuitive because you want to protect them and give them a soft place to land, and that's actually the worst thing you can do. Right.
That reminds me of a story. So it's a number of years ago, and it was Christmas, and we had both grandmothers, meaning my husband's mom and my mom, visiting, and our son, who lived in Dallas at the time, was spending time with us at our family home, so you could spend time with the grandparents. Sure. And I don't know what was going on, because the old me would have been like with the flashlight and drug tests and breathalyzers and all that. I didn't do any of that, but my husband and I had a conversation. We said, we do think something's going on, and it's making us, because we try and talk about our I statements, I'm uncomfortable. And he said, I am too, and I think it's best that he leave our home. So it's like Christmas Eve, or I to be honest, I don't remember exactly if it was Christmas or right after Christmas, but we said we got his stuff and we kind of put it in a hefty bag and put it by the front door. And he came home and he was a little wackadoodle and very confrontational with us. And we said getting very confrontational with his dad. So I said, we've called an Uber, and it's best, because this is escalating and things are going to happen and we don't want them to happen. So long story short, he did leave. He was not happy about it. He said horrible things to us. And my husband, I kept saying, he's wants you to argue with him, really badly. And then we had the grandmothers in the background. Oh my gosh, he could die. Where's he going? And it's Christmas. And we said, please stop. Why don't you go to another room? And my husband and I, after he left, we both looked at each other and I said, I feel at peace. And he said, I do too. And we both looked at each other because we knew we were doing the right thing.
It didn't feel right.
It doesn't feel good.
It doesn't feel good, but
it doesn't feel good, but it felt right. And I mean, it's not like, years later, our son gave us a ticket tape parade and said, oh my gosh, it was the best thing you've ever done to me, blah, blah, blah. But he has shared with us that it is important that he knows we have to take care of ourselves. And as a couple, ourselves, as a couple, our relationship with God, all of those things, and that he needs to take care. And we know that he has tools that he can figure it out. But I remember that sense of peace, and that was a God thing. I knew it was.
God helped you, yeah.
Totally helped me, because I love my mom, but she's in the background and she's blah, 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 blah. Oh my God, Virginia, it's cold. I'm like, it's Dallas. It's not cold.
It's not that cold.
It's not that cold. So, but that peace, it was, again, I was grateful for that horrible, uncomfortable moment, but the peace that, it was a blessing that I was so thankful. Thank you, God, for giving me this sense of peace.
That's great.
Yeah.
And I know it's hard. Like, a lot of people don't understand, like, obviously the grandmothers, but you had to do what you had to do. And that's another thing that's hard. I remember your sponsor, Lauren, told me once, whatever you do, don't talk to your friends at work about the things that are going on with you and you're alcoholic, because they're not going to understand.
No,
and it's going to make it worse.
It does.
Yeah. So,
because they're either going to say, well, your person's horrible and you should just disown them, or you just didn't try hard enough, or maybe you should do what's wrong with you. And so, I don't have those conversations with really any of my family members because they haven't gone through the steps. I have one that has, but but not others. So
is that like the uncle?
So my it's my mother-in-law. She went through.
Oh, your mother-in-law.
Yes, she went through the steps, and so it's kind of neat for the two of us to have a conversation.
For alcohol, she went through the steps, or
she went as a concerned, as an Al-Anonic.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we have, and she had gone through them somewhat recently.
That's really
and
cool,
it's
Deb.
really great.
Do you think that was based on you going through the steps?
Well, she said to me long ago, I can see how it's helped you.
Deb,
which is
amazing.
really nice. Yeah. I can see how it's helped you because she's also seen me in really bad situations where it's really affected me in my way, my philosophy and my behavior and how it has affected me and choosing not the higher road, but just getting marred down in the muck and in the isolation and the anger and frustration, and because I have expectations and they're not being met.
Right.
And so I'm mad at everything. So yeah, it's wonderful. I would love to do, here I'm announcing it during our time together, but to do some type of, have a conversation with her to try and help.
In the
no,
area?
She doesn't.
Oh,
she
okay.
lives in California.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
But yeah.
That's awesome.
I know it's benefited her.
So she wanted what you had.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
Which is really, people don't realize how important the 12 steps are, that it's not just going to meetings. I mean, I'm not saying that that's bad, because whatever you get and the time that you put in is still very important, but it's a game changer. It changes your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I wanted. I wanted that laughter, and I didn't want to be not having any hope in my life anymore, because I allowed that to happen.
You were spun out of control.
Yes.
All right. This has been amazing talking to you. I have one last question.
Sure.
So what would you want someone listening to know about Maggie's House? And especially if it's somebody that's considering coming to the Magdalen House to connect or get help. Is there anything that you think they might find helpful?
So first of all, I think anybody out there that Googles like for the first step or next step program for alcoholics, just for what I've seen and how it has changed people's lives and families, because that person has had the willingness to go to a 2-week program and then continue on, next step for 60 days and then maybe a sober living environment. But what it does for the family is it gives us a place to call our own, that we can share
our community,
it's sense of community. We can share our thoughts because we can't, unless somebody's in the program, really talk about an area that they're conflicted with. Relapse is always a really hard understanding, that relapse can be good, but when you tell that to a family member, sometimes they just look at you and say, you're nuts.
Because that's the first thing they ask is, what if they drink again?
Yeah,
what
do I do? And how do I do these steps in order to, like, if I do the 12 steps, that's going to guarantee me that I have this knowledge to possibly change whatever the trajectory is for our loved one, that they won't ever relapse. I'm like, no, that's not going to happen at all. I have no idea what's going to happen. But relapse is always a learning experience. But this place is constantly evolving. We have a men's group now, which is so great. That's because amazing. I've had boys. And so I just think, I met a young man last night, and he just reminded me of one of my guys. Just his demeanor, and he was really cute and fun, and really wants to learn a lot, and the uncomfortableness of it all. It's just it's a harbor, it's a safe harbor for us to come and share our thoughts and our fears and our anger. A lot of times family members have lots of anger. Lots of anger, and most of that anger, because there's a real fine line between anger and fear. Yeah. And a lot of it, when we unpack it, there's fear there, and they always feel better. So
yeah, it's funny when I talk to family members, one of the things I say, and it's in reference to the shipwreck part of the book, where we've all been from the same shipwreck, which I think is such a great analogy. Right. But I tell them, I want to hear your story and I want to hear how you're doing, but you don't have to tell your story for me to know that I've been where you're at.
Oh, that's perfect.
Yeah. And I say, I tell them, like, I'm here for you because I've been where you're at. Right. So I love that. Well,
I do too.
Well, thank you so much, Deb,
it's my pleasure
talking to us today. This was amazing, and it was just a great discussion. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Lori.
This has been Hope for the Family, hosted by Lori Evans and brought to you by the Magdalen House. I am Bryn Hansen, host of our Recovered Interviews with Alcoholics podcast series. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.